It was 2:47 a.m. in Ouagadougou when the first tweet appeared. No one expected it to go viral. It was a 26-second clip, grainy audio, scratchy voices, but the words were unmistakable. "You will regret this. Captain Ibrahim Traoré." Within minutes, hashtags exploded. Audio leak. Traoré speaks. Africa not for sale. In Washington, alarms rang. The White House Situation Room lit up. Kamala Harris was rushed in. She listened to the full audio, 8 minutes long. Her face paled. "This wasn't supposed to get out," she whispered. Back in Burkina Faso, Ibrahim Traoré stood on his balcony, staring into the dark horizon. His voice had traveled across oceans, but what came next would shake the world. He hadn't meant to threaten. He had meant to warn. But in this world, a warning from Africa was often seen as defiance, and defiance, to some, meant war. Somewhere in the Pentagon, someone muttered, "We need to silence this before others rise." But it was too late. The world was already listening. And for once, it wasn't turning away. 3 weeks earlier. Inside a heavily secured diplomatic hall in Nairobi, a closed-door meeting was underway. No cameras, no press, no leaks. Or so they thought. Ibrahim Traoré sat across from Kamala Harris. Calm, composed, a quiet storm behind his eyes. She smiled politely, but her tone was firm. "We believe our presence in West Africa will ensure peace and development." Traoré looked at her, silent. Then slowly, he leaned in. "With respect, Madam Vice President, peace does not come from puppets. Africa will no longer bleed for someone else's dream." The room fell quiet. Harris responded coldly. "Captain, you're playing with fire." That's when Traoré said it. "Then let me burn in truth. But you will regret this." The voice on the recording was clear, calm, unafraid. But why would someone leak this? Who was in the room? The world began to ask questions, but the answers would take them into places no one wanted to see. Not in the White House, not in France, not even in Burkina Faso. As the audio spread, one thing became clear. This wasn't about just one meeting. It was about years of secrets, finally breaking free. In a small village near Koudougou, a boy named Abu sat outside with a broken radio patched together by wires and hope. He was only 12, but he always tuned in late at night. He wanted to be like Ibrahim Traoré, brave, bold, unshakable. That night, the radio crackled alive with the leaked audio. Abu froze. He recognized the voice instantly. He knew Traoré's tone like a heartbeat. But this was different. It sounded like a goodbye, or a warning before something big. The next morning, Abu ran to school shouting, "They're going to hurt him. They don't want us to be free." The teacher hushed him. But in their eyes, there was fear. Because they'd heard it too. All across Burkina Faso, people gathered. Farmers, teachers, mothers with babies strapped to their backs. They listened together in markets, on buses, in churches. The voice was calm, strong, and it carried something deeper than politics. It carried truth. One old man whispered, tears in his eyes, "We haven't heard something this real since Sankara." The people knew what the world was only starting to learn. This wasn't just about Traoré. This was about all of them. A brown folder. No markings, no name, just left on the desk of U.S. intelligence analyst Renee Jacobs. She wasn't supposed to open it, but she did. Inside was a draft document stamped Operation Rift. It was a proposal, signed by high-ranking officials, to destabilize key regions in West Africa. The goal? Encourage regional unrest to justify increased U.S. presence for resource stabilization. She read the list. Gold, lithium, cobalt, uranium. Burkina Faso was circled in red ink. Her hands shook. There was even a note. Ensure Traoré's regime collapses within 90 days. Stage civil unrest if necessary. Renee felt sick. She had joined government to protect lives, not destroy countries. She scanned for timestamps. One date stood out. April 22nd, the day Kamala Harris met with Traoré. This wasn't a misunderstanding. It was a setup. She rushed to delete her access log, printed a copy, and slipped the folder back. Then she made a decision. She wasn't going to stay silent. And if it cost her everything, so be it. Somewhere in the shadows, the U.S. wasn't just reacting to the leaked audio. They were executing a plan, and Ibrahim Traoré was target number one. That night, Captain Traoré couldn't sleep. He stood in his study, listening again to the leaked recording, this time with different ears. Someone had betrayed him. But who? The meeting room in Nairobi had only 7 people, 3 Americans, 2 African Union officials, a French diplomat, and him. He called in his chief of security. Find out who planted the device, quietly. But time was against him. In the capital, foreign agents were arriving quietly under fake identities, posing as journalists, NGO staff, even peacekeepers. Their mission was clear: destabilize, divide, discredit. At the same time, fake news spread online. Traoré planning to expel civilians. Traoré bans aid groups. Internal resistance rising. None of it was true, but it didn't need to be. In the digital age, perception was the new reality. Meanwhile, young men in Burkina Faso's villages were arming themselves, not to fight the West, but to protect their homes. Ibrahim is one of us, they said. Touch him, and you touch all of us. And yet, the walls were closing in. A storm was coming, and somewhere, someone had the power to stop it, if they dared. It was 3:12 a.m. when Renee Jacobs clicked send. Her message, encrypted and untraceable, was addressed to one person. Ibrahim Traoré at protonmail.com. The subject line read, "Urgent. They're coming for you." Inside was a scanned copy of the Operation Rift document and one chilling sentence. "I don't know you, but I know the truth. Use this before they use you." Then she unplugged her phone, packed a small bag, and vanished. Back in Ouagadougou, Traoré received the email as he sat with his intelligence team. At first, they thought it was fake, but the seals were real. The language, undeniable. The signature matched a former deputy secretary's. Traoré stared at the screen for a long time. Then quietly he said, "Now we fight a war of truth." He summoned his communication chief. "Don't release it yet," he said. "Let them think they are winning." "But why, Captain?" "Because we will strike not with bullets, but with proof. And when we do, the world will cry for the lies they believed." And as dawn broke over Burkina Faso, Ibrahim Traoré prepared, not just for defense, but for revelation. It was a quiet morning. Too quiet. Traoré had just finished reading a letter from a group of schoolchildren in Bobo Dioulasso. "We believe in you," they wrote. "Please don't let them take our home." Then the phone rang. "Captain," his security chief said, voice trembling. It's your brother, Abdoulaye. Shot. Killed. On his way to deliver school supplies to a rural town." Traoré stood frozen. The world around him blurred. His younger brother. His best friend. The one who'd always told him, "Don't fight just for politics. Fight for people." Now he was gone. Eyewitnesses said it was a foreign-looking man. SUV. No license plate. No one was arrested. No one even tried. That night, Traoré didn't speak to anyone. He sat alone on the rooftop, looking at the stars. "Why him?" he whispered. His hands trembled, but not from fear. From grief. From anger. He knew now. This wasn't just about politics anymore. They were coming for everything he loved. And if the world stayed silent, Then he would roar loud enough for everyone to hear. In a secure building in D.C., Senator Charles Whitman leaned back in his leather chair. He had spent 23 years profiting from instability in Africa. Mining contracts, defense deals, media narratives. Now this Captain Traoré was ruining everything. "He's too clean," Whitman muttered. "Too honest. That makes him dangerous." He was the one who greenlit Operation Rift. He was the one who approved the meeting in Nairobi. And he was the one who ordered the hit on Traoré's brother. But something had gone wrong. The audio leak had sparked something Whitman didn't expect. A movement. Young Africans were marching with placards that read, "Our land, our voice. We stand with Traoré." Even some African leaders were pulling away from Western alliances. The senator slammed his desk. "Send more chaos. Burn his name if you have to." But far away, in a small cafe in Accra, someone was listening. An ex-CIA agent. One who once believed in the system, until he saw what it did to good people. He picked up his phone and made a call to Ouagadougou. "I know who's pulling the strings," he said, "and I'm ready to help you cut them." It started with women. Mothers in colorful head wraps filled the streets of Ouagadougou, holding up photos of their sons, their fathers, their neighbors. "We are not weapons. We are not colonies," they chanted. "We are Burkina Faso." Then came the students, some barefoot, others with school books raised above their heads like shields. The market vendors closed their stalls. Farmers left their fields. Even the city's police stood at a distance, watching in awe. No guns, no violence. Just Darcho tears. Songs. And a unified voice. Inside the presidential palace, Traoré stood at the window watching. He hadn't asked them to come, but they came, because they saw in him what they had been waiting for their whole lives, a leader who wouldn't sell them out, a leader who would die before kneeling, a leader who, even in grief, stood tall. He turned to his team. "Release the document. Show the world everything. But Captain, do it, and tell them, this is not just my fight. This is all of us." The email went out. The proof was public. And somewhere, in a dark room in Washington, Kamala Harris picked up her phone. "We need to fix this, before it's too late." The footage was grainy, silent, no subtitles, just shadows. But what it showed shook the world. A secret drone recording, leaked anonymously, surfaced online, showing U.S. contractors offloading crates of weapons into a remote area near Burkina Faso's northern border. There were no peacekeepers, no aid workers, just mercenaries. The video cut to images of villagers fleeing, homes burning, and a masked man shouting, "We were told to create chaos, orders from above." By noon, the video had 20 million views. Hashtags flooded in. "Use in Africa," "Weapon theft," "We stand with Traoré." On Al Jazeera, an anchor whispered, "This is no longer diplomacy, this is destruction." Traoré watched in silence, tears in his eyes. He whispered to himself, "They said we were unstable, but it was them all along." Back in Washington, the walls were crumbling. Kamala Harris slammed her hand on the table. "Who leaked this?" No one answered. Because truth has a way of escaping even the tightest hands. And this time, it flew straight into the hearts of millions. That night, Ibrahim Traoré gathered his team. He had made a decision. "They want me gone," he said calmly. "Not because I'm dangerous, but because I refuse to kneel." His team pleaded, "Captain, if you step down, they'll take everything." "I'm not stepping down," he replied. "I'm stepping forward." He would speak to the nation, not with anger, but with truth. And more than that, he would risk his life to travel to the border region, where foreign mercenaries were still reported, to stand among his people. No guards, no shield, just him. If I die, let it be in truth, not behind walls." The room went silent. No one could speak. One young officer burst into tears. "You are all we have," he said. But Traoré simply placed a hand on his shoulder. "I'm not afraid of dying," he said. "I'm afraid of being forgotten." And in that moment, the entire nation, watching through trembling screens, understood what it meant to lead. Not with fear, not with weapons, but with everything you are. As Traoré arrived in the border village of Titao, a woman stepped forward from the crowd. She was old, fragile, wrapped in a faded scarf. She had lost her husband in the French bombings, and her son during a raid by foreign-backed rebels. She took his hands in hers and looked into his eyes. "You remind me of Sankara," she whispered. "But your voice is softer." Traoré's lips trembled. "I don't want to be remembered like him. I want to finish what he started." She nodded slowly. Then she began to sing. It was a lullaby, one sung to children before sleep. But the way she sang it now, shaking, broken, hopeful, made even the soldiers cry. One by one, the villagers joined in, singing, crying, holding each other. The cameras rolled. But it wasn't for show. It was history. In a world flooded by war and noise, a song became the loudest weapon. And somewhere, watching from a hotel room in Paris, a French journalist whispered through tears, "I came here to expose him, but I think I've just seen the last honest man on earth." CNN, BBC, France 24, Al Jazeera, even Fox News. All of them ran with the same headline. Traoré walks into fire while the world watches. Clips from Titao were everywhere, children hugging him, mothers praying over him, songs of sorrow and strength rising from ashes. For the first time, Western audiences began to ask, what if we've been wrong about Africa? Influencers wept live on TikTok. One Australian blogger posted, "I didn't even know where Burkina Faso was last month. Now I cry for it every night." Across Africa, crowds swelled. From Accra to Kigali, people marched not in protest, but in old solidarity. A little girl in Lagos held a cardboard sign, "Don't touch my Uncle Traoré." Even the New York Times published an op-ed titled, "We laughed at Africa. Now we must listen." Inside the White House, Harris sat still, silent, no words left. This wasn't politics anymore. It was spirit, it was soul, and it was unstoppable. For days, Kamala Harris couldn't sleep. She watched the footage again and again, Traoré holding dying children in his arms, refusing body armor, standing under rain to listen to grieving fathers. She had believed she was doing the right thing. Keeping Africa stable, protecting U.S. interests. But now those words tasted like ash. Her staff briefed her on the collapse of support. The African Union condemned the operation. France pulled back. Ghana's president publicly praised Traoré. Then came the leak from inside the Pentagon. U.S. forces had funded rebel groups in Burkina Faso under Operation Rift. It was over. Kamala stared at the photo on her desk, her daughter when she was little. What would she tell her? That she stood by while an honest man was hunted for saying no? That she helped destroy a continent's future for oil and lithium? She whispered to herself, "We were wrong." And for the first time in her political life, Kamala Harris cried. 2 weeks after the Titao visit, as the country tried to recover, Ibrahim Traoré received a handwritten letter. No stamp, no name, just one line on the envelope. From Abdoulaye, before he died. Traoré opened it with trembling fingers. Inside, his brother had written, "If you are reading this, I may be gone. But know this, I never followed you because you were president. I followed you because when we were little, and I cried after Mama died, you held my hand and said, 'One day I'll make the world safe for little boys like us.' You kept your promise. I love you forever, Captain. Traoré dropped to his knees, sobbing. The strongest man in West Africa, broken by ink and memory. Outside, the people sang again. But this time, they were not just singing for him. They were singing with him. Because grief shared by millions becomes a revolution. The sun rose slowly over Ouagadougou. Every screen in Burkina Faso lit up. Every radio station paused. Every live stream across the continent waited. Captain Ibrahim Traoré stood behind a plain wooden podium. No gold, no flag-draped ego. Just him. His voice was soft, but every word shook hearts. I do not hate the West. I do not seek war. But I will not trade Africa's dignity for aid. I will not sell our silence for resources. And I will not die with secrets on my lips. He paused. My brother was murdered. My people suffer. But still, I have no hate in me. Tears formed. To those who tried to silence me, you failed. Because even if I am gone tomorrow, you cannot kill a people who have awakened. Then he did something no one expected. He stepped down from the podium and stood among the crowd. No guards, no security, just a man among his people. The silence was holy. Then cheers, sobs, drums, and a new chant. We are Traoré. In Ghana, students protested peacefully in front of the U.S. Embassy. In Nigeria, musicians dropped verses in support of Traoré. In South Africa, a mural went up overnight, a painting of Traoré holding hands with a child, under the words, "You will regret this, because you woke us." In the United States, something strange happened. Thousands of Black Americans took to the streets, not in anger, but in recognition. They carried signs. Africa is not your playground. Respect begins with truth. Kamala Harris, now silent in public, made one final call. She didn't speak to journalists, not to senators. She called Traoré directly and said just 6 words. I am sorry. You were right. There was no ceremony, no grand apology, but it was real. Traoré didn't reply. He didn't need to, because the world was already speaking for him. For once, Africa wasn't on its knees. It was standing. Months later, the world had changed. Burkina Faso was still struggling, but not broken. Schools were being rebuilt. Women were now leading local governments. Farmers were given land back. Refugees returned home. A little boy named Abu, remember him? The kid with the broken radio. He now ran a small school where he taught children how to build things with their hands. Above the classroom door, a sign read, "Speak, even if your voice shakes." Captain Ibrahim Traoré. The West had changed too. Maybe not everything, but enough. New leaders, new policies, new respect. One journalist asked a young African girl on the street, "What does Traoré mean to you?" She smiled. "He taught me that being African is enough." If you made it here, I want to ask you, did this story touch your heart? Did you cry for someone you've never met? Did you feel hope in a world that sometimes feels hopeless? Then don't just scroll away. Like this video if you believe Africa deserves truth. Subscribe if you want more stories that shake the world. Comment below, what would you have done if you were in Traoré's shoes? Your voice matters. Your voice